This is KHQ Local News at 5.
Ridiculous expenditure of money. Failed exercise.
That's Governor Chris Gregoire's reaction to a questioner reporter Bill McGinty asked in a sit-down interview. Find out what she was so fired up about.
Thank you. More local news. And the federal government has given the state of Washington $5 billion in stimulus money. Now, we're going to be tracking that money as it makes its way through the inland Northwest to make sure your tax dollars are spent properly.
In this current climate of cutbacks, layoffs, and pink slips, reporter Bill McGinty is looking how the state has spent some of your tax dollars over the last few years.
Joke? It's got to be a joke.
Say what? Say what? State of Washington?
That's good.
But I kind of missed it.
No, I've never heard of it. That's the answer.
The say what of say wah has a lot of Washingtonians saying, "You've got to be kidding."
It was designed as a catchy tourism slogan with the intent to lure people to the state of Washington to spend all those vacation dollars. Only problem was, say wah turned out to be a little more forgettable than it was memorable. So forgettable it just went away.
Say wah was the brainchild of Community Trade and Economic Development back in 2006. 32 people spent 18 months and 442,000 taxpayer dollars to say wah before they decided to say, let's scrap the idea.
Ridiculous expenditure of money. Failed exercise. Who in the world would have been impressed with a motto of say wah? So the people loud and clearly said, no, we don't like that. That's not how the federal stimulus dollars are going to be spent. They're going to be spent on creating jobs, not a study for a slogan.
If you think say wah was bogus, take a look at some of the other bad behavior with the taxpayer's checkbook. How about $615,000 in state pension payments to dead people and $180,000 worth of lost or stolen state-owned laptop computers and cameras, then $9,000 worth of missing gasoline credit cards.
These are the kinds of things that make people scratch their heads and say, what are they doing?
People commit fraud at the state government level just like they do in the private sector. So we have a highly organized effort now to make sure that we're holding people accountable and any fraud is detected early and people are held accountable for any violations of state law that they do against the state of Washington.
Every nickel counts right now.
Carl Gipson is with the Washington Policy Center, which monitors government waste and fraud in our state. So we asked him, is the state doing a good job?
I would say no, since we're facing a $9 billion budget shortfall. That's a case of overspending. Regarding fraud or not, she's correct in that there will always be fraud, there will always be some incompetence, but you absolutely must shore that up regardless of the budget situation you're in. And the $9 billion we're talking about here is evidence to the fact that no, they have not been good stewards of our money.
Failed slogans and fraud in these tight times, it's enough to make taxpayers say a lot more than just wah.
So where does that leave us? Well, the governor's office told me say wah did appear as a tagline in several local travel magazines, which was the bulk of that $442,000. As for the pension money paid out to the people who are dead, the governor's office told me 75% of that money has already been recovered and that there's a new system in place which does a better job of cross-referencing those Social Security numbers and death records. If you'd like to comment on this story, and we'd love to have your input, I'll read some of your comments coming up at 6 o'clock. Simply log on to KHQ.com and then click right there on the news tab.
Yeah, Bill, looking at this list of wasteful spending, which is quite lengthy, Christmas tree inspections, $66,000. Seems pretty obvious that's wasteful, but then you come down here to local community projects, $132 million. That sounds legit.
Yeah, there are a lot of projects the state spends money on that are legitimate community projects, but places like the Washington Policy Center will argue to the state, do we need to spend this money now? And it's really considered pork because some of these projects, while good projects, are simply slipped into the budget. They're not vetted, they're not discussed, they don't have a spotlight shown on them. Maybe we don't need to spend that money now.
Well, when you consider everything we're losing with education, you really
it makes you wonder when you look at this. And by the way, this list, everyone, is on our website at KHQ.com.
Look for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there's still much more.